Alright, so this is the tutorial for making shoebox in orange with a slice and a teacup and saucer. For the here's looking at Euclid video. When you open up Blender, you're gonna have a bunch of stuff in here like a cube and a light and a camera. Just delete it all. You don't need any of it. I am going to work with an empty scene and that I will just be adding stuff to. So the first thing I'm going to add is a camera. This camera is going to have some settings under our scene dimensions right here, output properties. Looks like a little printer. We can set the resolution or the size, the X and the Y size, the percentage that we're rendering at of that size. You can set it, this could be set to 500%, it needs to be 500 times this. We're not doing animation, we don't need to worry about that. We do want to export a PNG, so under output, PNG. And then the next thing to check is your render properties. Excuse me, that's the camera icon above that. I'm going to be rendering in Eevee to start. I usually render in the other one called Cycles. Cycles is ray tracing, it's much more realistic. A couple of things with Eevee though, you're going to want to make sure you have ambient occlusion turned on. And that shadows is set to soft shadows and at least 1024 by 1024 cube size and cascade size. This is just to give us some nice realistic shadows. We're using Eevee instead of Cycles because Eevee is a little friendlier on systems. It tends to render a little more efficiently than Cycles. It doesn't depend on your graphics card as heavily, so should be good for a laptop. Okay, so yeah, we'll put this in here. One thing I like to do that you should probably get used to is your camera snap settings. See, I'm hitting number pad 1, number pad 3, 7 is top. Your even numbers do kind of increments, orbiting increments, but get used to those because I'll be using them quite a bit. Either you have a numpad or you don't. If you don't have a number pad, go to Preferences, go to Inputs, and up here at the very top, click Emulate Number Pad. This is good for a laptop, so that it turns your number keys up at the top row of your keyboard into essentially the number pad keys, so 1, 3, 5, 7, etc., etc. So make sure those are turned on. All right, I'm going to zero out the rotation of the camera. And I'm going to hit R and I'm going to grab it. If you hold Control, you can kind of constrain it into those grid increments. Just wanted to get it up here. Let's move it maybe over here and try to down point. This 3D cursor is where everything is going to enter the world. If we snap into our view, you can come to view over here. If you don't see this drawer, just hit N. That brings that drawer up. Click lock camera to view, and now you can use your sort of pan and tilt and shift keys, like middle mouse button, shift and middle mouse button to pan. Zoom out if you want. However you want to kind of arrange things in the scene. And this will make more sense. Just remember in a minute when we start putting stuff in, but remember to turn it off whenever we remember to uncheck that whenever you're done with it. Otherwise, you'll kind of mess everything up as you're trying to move around. So, all right, I like to snap in here to different views whenever I start adding things. So let's make a shoebox first. So we're going to Shift A again. We're going to add a cube. I'm going to go into wireframe mode. I'm just holding Z to get this pie menu and just mousing over to wireframe. There are two different modes. Well, there's many different modes, but there's two primary different modes that we're going to be using, Object and Edit. Object just lets you move things around as solid objects. Edit lets you get into that object and actually manipulate it. So we're going to do that. Hit Tab to go back and forth between your modes. So now I'm in Edit mode, and I know that because I can see these little points here, that little vertices. Up here at the top left, you have Vertice, Edge, and Face Select. This vertice select is what we want right now. But before we do that, let's go back into this mode and let's scale it to get kind of the rough shape of a shoebox that we want here. We'll scale and constrain to the Z, so we're just hitting S and Z. constrain it to the axis, and that's kind of roughly a shoebox. Sometimes it's good, you could do this from memory, or you could bring in a source image or find an image that you like that fits and looks the way you want it to. You can just make a box with a really simple lid, or you can get a little interesting with it. It's really kind of up to you how kind of crazy you want to get. I know a lot of shoe boxes are kind of like an outer shell with another shoe, or with another box inside of it. Excuse me, and I think we should try to do that. So to do that, we're going to need to add some thickness, because right now these walls don't have any thickness. But I'm going to take off this face. Look at it, it's solid. I'm going to take off this face, and I'm going to take off this face. So I'm going to delete those faces. I hit X to bring up that delete. And then I'm going to come back into, or I'm going to stay in edit mode. I'm going to select these. I'm going to export, and then I'm going to extrude by hitting E, and then I'm hitting S to scale it, and then we're going to scale down. And that scaling down gives us that little bit of thickness. Now the one thing you'll notice is that that's not really like, shoeboxes don't have this bevel, right? So in order to fix that bevel, what we're going to do is we're going to grab those edges. We'll switch to edge mode, and I'm going to hold Option and click on an edge. So if you just click on one edge and you can shift select those different edges, that works. Or you can do what's called selecting an edge loop, and that's a connected sequence of edges by holding Option or Alt and clicking on that edge. I'm going to constrain to an axis, hit G to grab and Y to constrain, and then move it and line it up. I'll do that here too. Y. Just do it till you can't see it anymore. I think I'm going to make sure. There we go. So yeah, so that gets us nice and even there. Go back to our solid view, and you kind of see that. There's our shoebox. If you feel like that's too thick, you can select, you can go back to face, select all these faces on the inside, and then hit Alt S, and that will let you scale internally, like outwards. Instead of scaling the entire thing, it's just scaling in those up and down directions, the X and Z axes. So we can make it a little thinner if we want to. Alright, that looks pretty good. Alright, let's duplicate this cube, and we will move it into Y. And then what we need to do is we need to make it just a little bit smaller because we have thickness now, so I'm going to come back to wireframe. And we just scale the whole thing down. Actually, you know what? We want to scale in Z because we want to keep it long. We're going to slide that sucker in there and take a look at it. Alright, so then I can scale back into Z again to kind of match that. And I'm just looking at like how close these lines here are getting to each other, because that gives me an idea. We'll get to that right there. We can stop there. Perfect. One thing we can do with this now, we'll bring it back out. It's just for sizing. There's a couple different things that we need to do to clean this up. We need to close one side and give it some thickness. Actually, you know what? It might be easier to just delete it. Add another cube. Go into wireframe. Yeah, actually this is going to be easier, sorry. Scale this down. Let's zoom in so we can see how close we're getting to that edge. Just close that drawer and get it out of the way. Okay. And then we'll scale in the Y, so S and then Y. Scale it up. Perfect. Grab it and pull it out so we can edit it some more. And snap my view to it just by hitting the period. Hit period on your numpad. If you don't have a numpad, you're going to have to edit one of your keyboard, your key maps. So just come to key map and type in view select. Selected. Not selected. Not that plus view center. Frame selected. It's called frame selected now. So just type in frame selected and then just change any one of these to be, this will probably say numpad. Like if I undo it, so it says numpad, just press it and make it your period. And then you can just hit period on your keyboard. Alright, so now what I want to do is come to face mode, and I'm going to delete that face, and then we will grab these faces, and we will extrude and scale in again. So let's try Alt-S to just scale in. Yeah, there we go. Alt-S works best. Well, no it doesn't. Alright, let's just scale and go S because I want, maybe, okay. We're going to do Alt-S. Alt-S to scale it, that way we get that nice clean edge at the top. Bring it in as thick as you think it needs to be for those edges. We can modify it later. So now I'm going to go into solid just to make this a little easier to see. Let's come to my top view, and I'm going to grab it and move it in Y. Thin that up a little bit. Grab that face, snap to your top view again, grab it in Y, thin that up, and grab the bottom one here, come to wireframe. Well, that's pretty even. I just want to make sure that these thicknesses feel even. Now that one is very off. So let's actually go into, oh, that's why, okay. Let's grab our edges here, grab this top edge, move it up there, grab this edge, move in the X. We want to line these up so these walls, edges are parallel and not slipped in like that. Believe it or not, there are easier ways to do this. I just want you to be comfortable doing some editing by hand. So, okay. So that gives us a box with some thickness, some wall thickness. Sometimes when you have these shoe boxes, they'll have like a hole right here that you can put your finger in to pull that out and slide. So let's actually make that hole. We are going to add a cylinder. Let's snap our view. We're going to rotate the cylinder. I'm holding control while I'm doing this to snap it, or you can just hit 90. Okay, that hole is obviously too big for that, but I kind of like it. A little smaller here. You just decide where you want it. There we go. I'm going to move it over here. You can get as creative as you want with this, but I think this is just fine. So to cut this, to use this cylinder, we're going to use this cylinder to cut a circle out of this box. In order to do that, we need to use something called a modifier, and that's this little wrench icon right here, this blue wrench. So select the box, go to the wrench, the modifiers, and then we're going to do a Boolean modifier. This is like the Pathfinder tool in Illustrator. We're using one shape to cut out other shapes. So we're going to grab this little eyedropper, we're going to move it here. I like to be in wireframe mode for this because it will really show you kind of what's happening to that mesh better than solid view. So you can see that now this box mesh is taking the place where they intersect and it's saying, oh, there's supposed to be a hole there. And these lines right here are just where it needs to kind of create an even face. So we're going to go ahead and hit apply. And we're going to select that cylinder and delete it. And then if we go back into solid mode, we'll see we now have a hole. Great. So that was pretty easy. Now what we need to do is we need to do some material editing. Okay. In order to add materials, in order to color this stuff, because right now it doesn't look like anything, we need to have a light source. There needs to be a light in the environment, so let's add a light. We're going to add let's add a sunlight. Okay. Just going to put it right at that 3D cursor. I'm just going to stick it up here in the middle of the space for now. Nothing is oriented, or at least the camera is not oriented correctly to our stuff, but that's fine. We'll deal with that in a second. If we go to render, this is what it's going to look like right now. So light source, I have these gray boxes. That's fine, it's just super boring. So let's actually add some interest. So we're going to select one of the objects. We're going to come down here to this sphere with the little check marks in it, the material properties. We're going to hit new material. There's also a tab up here at the top dedicated to this, and this is your shading workspace. So I'm going to go into shading. this view is a material preview view. We're going to go ahead and just turn on render since we're using Eevee. And this will give us an accurate representation of what's going on. I made a material slot already for my object. That's by just hitting material. And then we're going to create a new material. You'll see it pops up over here, but we want to use the node editor because it's a little more visual. Right? Now let's name this material. We're going to call this box insert. And if you just want this to have one base color, then this top material is where you do that. So whatever you want your base color for your box to be, I'm going to make my base color kind of red, I guess. Maybe, I don't know, you decide what you want it to look like. But I want to add some interest to it, so I might actually, well, we are going to play around here a little bit. So I'm going to have it be, the base color is going to be purple, but then I'm going to add another material slot. I'm going to hit new, and I'm going to call this box insert detail. Insert. Let's change that. Insert detail. And for this one, we need to be in edit mode for this in order to change this. So this detail material right now is sort of this like it's a white, but maybe let's make it like a yellow. Since yellow is complementary for the purple, let's make that yellow. And then we're going to select. We're going to face select mode. We're going to select the faces that we want to be yellow. I'm going to have these faces be yellow. Maybe all the internal faces be yellow. Okay. So right now you can see that they are purple. When I select them, it goes like, oh, well, the material you have is this box insert one. We're going to select this one, and then we're going to hit assign. And you can see that in your viewport, it changes to that yellow, which is great. I'm going to make one more because I want to add like a trim detail here. So we're going to add a new one. We're going to call it box insert trim detail. And that I am going to leave white, or maybe a green would be good. Like a greenish blue. Something it's a little too bright. Keep it kind of pale. Yeah, that looks good. All right, that one. So we have it made, and then we just need to select the faces that we want to apply it to. Could get kind of crazy and be like, well, we're going to apply it to that one. So those are green. I don't know if I love that actually. And then let's make a fourth one. We'll call this insert trim. Actually, you know what? Let's delete that. Let's get out of edit mode. Delete that one. And what we're going to do is actually copy this one. So select this and oh, I forgot. I thought it was just. Oh, I think it's just that. Oh, it is. Oh no, that's not what I wanted. Okay, never mind. Yeah, we'll go ahead and just make a fresh one. This video you can just copy it. Insert trim detail 2. Let's just pick our white for that. And then we'll select those faces. And we'll come down and select it and hit assign. Now we've got white. So, you know, not the best colors. I'm not digging this purple too much actually. Let's change it to something else. Yeah, that's better. You know, you can just play around with it, do what you want. You can change this insert internal color as well. It's really whatever you feel like. Okay, and then this one, we'll go ahead and add a new material slot. See, you can do the same thing here. Just make sure you label them. Box sleeve. Labeling just makes it easier to keep track of stuff. I'm going to make this kind of like a salmon color, I think. I don't know. I'm having a hard time picking colors today, apparently. Let's just take all our. Let's go RGB, take that all down. Get a nice gray. Oh, we can make gray the inside. Box sleeve color. We'll make this blue. Let's make this a green, maybe. No, I think we need like an orange. Okay, I'm going to edit. Select these faces. Sign. Okay, that's good. And then we just hit Y, and you can slide that in. Oh, so it's a little, so that little fighting that we saw there, a little shimmer, it's because the insert dimensions are a little too close to the sleeve dimensions. And so it couldn't really decide which one should be which. So, okay. So let's go to our camera view then. We'll come back to layout. I'm going to save my file. Don't forget to save your file. Dump it in classes, assignments, and we'll call this tutorial 1. Okay, tutorial 1. So go to our camera view. Let's select these guys. I'm going to rotate in the Z. Scale down and kind of move. I'm going to hit Shift Z to just move the X and Y axes. It's great. We kind of need a plane to clip everything on. So I'm going to make it, and then do Shift C to move it. And then I'll show you how to kind of set this up. Set this up so that it looks, it curves up and doesn't just end right here, and then we get kind of a nice render here. So let's move our light over, kind of change our shadow settings. Our ambient settings are really low. Ambient controls like how dark your shadows are here. Now if you want to, you can test this. You go to render image. And there's your image. That's what it looks like right now. You can see that that's not great, but this is okay. Not perfect, but it's fine for what we're doing. So this is what Eevee looks like. Okay. Just with basic settings turned on. Let's actually switch to cycles real quick. And cycles, I prefer cycles because cycles is it's a little slower render, but the lighting is much more naturalistic. I almost think I would rather you just work with cycles. But if cycles chugs on your computer, then you can work with Eevee. All right, we'll let this render, and then we'll figure this out. That looks pretty good. It's not great. Those are simple materials, but it's not terrible. So. Okay. So that would be a setting. You can see actually down here, see how there's some blue light reflection on the material, or back onto the ground. There's some orange over here as well. That's realistic. That's what we're looking for. So let's go ahead and close that. We're not going to save it, but we'll come back to solid mode, or you can even go to material preview, which gives you this nice, really bright view. It just doesn't do shadows. It just lights everything 100%. So if we stay in cycles, which actually I am going to just stay in cycles now, your ambient occlusion is over here in the world tab under ambient, and I would just turn it down a little bit. You probably don't have this pro lighting. That's totally fine. Don't worry about it. It's something I use. But that's great. We can just leave it like that and it'll be fine. Again, really, it's up to you. Eevee cycles. It doesn't matter at this point. We're not doing anything super complicated. So. All right, well, the shoebox is done. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select both of them. I'm going to hit M. I'm going to make a new collection. This is like a group. We're going to call it shoebox. Hit OK, and you'll see it shows up over here. This shoebox is our sleeve, so if we double click, say sleeve. And then this shoebox is our insert. Call it insert. And then I'm going to go ahead and make a new collection by right-clicking. I'm going to rename this collection to orange. And then we're going to hide the shoebox. Okay? Let's actually make our background before we move on to the orange. So I'm going to go into edit mode on this plane. We want to need our vertice mode. Okay? Select these two far vertices and hit E to extrude and Z to constrain up, because So we're going to just pull this up super high. Okay. Come back down, grab these two vertices again. We're going to do Control B to bevel, and as you pull out, you can see you get this bevel, right? We'll pull out and then mouse wheel up to add curves into that bevel. And what this does from our camera view is it curves that up. So if we go back into render, we now have like this infinite space that curves up and gives us kind of a nice side. Let's actually up our sunlight a little. It's really dim. Maybe it's already ambient. Just up our ambient quite a bit. And let's bring this back down a little. Okay. Looks pretty good. Okay, back to actually material preview is always fun. So material preview, great. And let's go ahead and hide the shoebox collection again. Select your orange collection and then go ahead and hit Shift A to bring in a UV sphere. Now the UV sphere is what we're going to use to cut our orange. When you first pop it in, down here in the bottom left is going to be this window for adding segments. We can keep it at 32 segments, that's fine. None of this really needs to get changed. It just controls like how smooth it looks. For what we're doing, this is okay. We're not trying to get it super realistic, but I do want you to right click on the sphere and do shade smooth. And you'll see you don't see the face, excuse me, you don't see the faces anymore, right? If you right click and hit shade flat, now you start to see these faces. But if you just do shade smooth, you don't see the faces. Now it will be a little rough here. So if that bothers you, you can always add another modifier. That modifier is subdivision surface. And what this does is it smooths that out. You can look at it. So now, instead of it being so sharp, it's doing that. It's just like arbitrarily adding faces. So you kind of just keep doing this, and it will get smoother. It does affect performance, but it looks pretty good. And this is more like an illustrated or cartoony looking orange. I'm not looking for the realism of this orange. So anyway, all right, let's go into edit mode. And we need to cut out a slice. So let's do wireframe. Let's kind of come to the top. And let's decide how we want to cut this out. One thing you can do, oops. Okay, there we go. Control and right mouse will let you do this, like double A unselects everything. Control and right mouse will let you do this sort of like lasso selection, and this is okay. I find it kind of a pain. What I usually do, you can see I'm trying to select all those, that, and then we do need this middle piece here, right? When we have this selected like this, that's going to be our slice, okay? And you've got all those selected. Again, wireframe, go into your top view, top down view. You can hit C to do a circle selection, which is one I use a lot. You could just hit Control, Option, click, and Shift on each of these edges here. That'll get you edge loops. That's actually the cleanest way to do it. But once you have that little crescent selected, hit P to separate and do selection. And what that does is it now gives us a piece that we've cut off. So you go back to solid, you can see that, that's great. I'm just going to zoom up to the surface a little bit here while we're playing with them. Perfect. Now let's come back into edit mode, and we need to close this. So we are going to shift select both of those points, and like this, hit F. You'll see it does that. Ooh, that's gross. We're not actually going to do that. Let's turn off. Let's just turn off subsurf right now. So we're going to select that. It's going to be both. Okay. Well, select both of those and hit F to do a line, and then still do it. Okay, interesting. Well, then you can shift select all these edges. You could snap into this view. Maybe that's still doing this. Alright, let's subdivide that point, and what that does is it gives us a point there in the middle. which we're going to need in a second. You can just select all these. This kind of is by hand. It's not super easy, but this does make cleaner geometry. And I'm just sort of selecting this point, and this point, and making these triangles. These triangles are going to give us really clean geometry, which will make a difference whenever we add our material. So if you mess up like I just did, just select it again. Just make sure you're kind of orienting yourself to ensure that you're selecting the right faces, because I keep screwing up. All right, just like that. So just repeat that process over here. We should be able to see if you were to just select the edge loop and do that, and you would get this face right here. And you see how the shadows? Sorry, this thing is in my way. See how the shadows are different, right? Like the shadow is hitting that in a really weird way. And if we turn and kind of see that, and that shadow looks all distorted and doesn't look right. That's because this face is not a real face. It's called an engon, and it's like a fake polygon. Okay. So that's why I really recommend making the triangles. It makes the lighting a lot more realistic. You don't run into that issue of the shadows looking funny. Is a little tedious. It takes some time. Feel free to speed up this part of it. I'm almost done. Great. Okay. So now the shadow looks a lot better. It's not this weird like lumpy dimple or anything in there. And if we do like shade flat, then it's even better. The shade smooth is good enough for now. And we'll go ahead and add our modifier back on now. You could just turn it off. You didn't have to delete it like I did. It's gonna, ooh, that does give us some weirdness right there, that doesn't it? Yeah, it does. Well, one thing you do, yeah, okay. One thing we could do to fix that weirdness is select, let's go into our faces, and you can take your shift select tool and select all those faces on the inside here. Hit escape, subdivide those. It's a little better. If you don't want to subdivide those, you could add something like an edge loop. Yeah, I don't think that edge loop is going to really work. Yeah, shoot, I was hoping it would look kind of decent. Yeah, no, that just pulls it in a weird way, so we're not going to do that. Yeah, I would just select all these and subdivide it. That gives you a little bit cleaner geometry. It's just, you're adding more geometry. Makes that shadow just a little different. So, okay, come back here. Let's go ahead and turn that off for just a second. Grab this slice, and then it's pretty much the same process, right? Like, grab these two, hit F to make a line, right click to subdivide it to give yourself a point in the middle, and then kind of come through and do your little fan. is tedious, but it gives you better geometry. When you don't screw it up. Alright, so over here. Oh. Ah. One thing about 3D modeling is that these faces have a direction that is supposed to point outwards, and that's called a normal. And that is the direction that lighting is calculated off of. So if you want realistic lighting, you need to make sure all your normals are facing the same direction. So we're going to recalculate our normals. I'm just hitting spacebar, and let's go, actually, let's see, I think we should go view our normals here. I always forget how to view normals. No, she got it. I'm going to pull it up. But yeah, that looks pretty okay. I'm going to go ahead and unselect everything and do my, oh yeah, let's do faces. Do my circle select here, right click, subdivide, circle select here, right click, subdivide. And that gets us something that looks like this, which is fine. Oh, that's not, there we go, that's fine. Okay. Subdivide. Why is it still messing that up? I don't know. Not gonna worry about it. It does look a little weird, but it'll be okay. Okay. Let's maybe turn that down just a little bit. Okay. So that's our orange slice. So let's kind of now arrange them on our plane. Okay. If we come to our camera view, we can see them. If we do rendered, we'll see them with shadows, so they are floating quite a bit. And we will shift and move them around, and then I like to kind of like twist it a little, and I'm just double tapping R to get it like that. If we do a solid view, you kind of get a sense of, just watch that outline and see how now it breaks that plane. So I'm just going to pop it right there. So I go down until it breaks it, and then I come back up to find that spot for it. Okay. I'm just kind of arranging these here. If we hit Alt-H, not even Alt-H, sorry. We just unhide our shoebox. We can kind of see where our shoebox is in this view. This is a gigantic orange. So let's scale our orange down. Bring it back down to the ground. And Shift Z to kind of move it around. We do have that teacup we need to bring in here. So we'll put the orange here. And then let's go back to shading. And this is what our orange looks like right now. Well, let's select it and let's make an orange surface color. So orange. I'll give our orange base. Give this one orange base. If you want to assign a material that's already been made, just click on this view and that will show you all the different materials that have been made. Great. one thing we do need to do is add, we need to do the rind and the inside color as well. So to do that rind, we actually need to add those faces there. So in order to add the faces, let's come back to, first let's save, let's come back to layout, do material preview. I'm going to zoom in here, to my orange. Oh, I isolated, whoops, that was my bad. Okay, let's just hit plus. Okay, I don't know why it's not working now. But yeah, we'll just zoom in. We'll look at edit here. This is fine, but what I need is I need like a rim material, or I need faces that give me a rim color, and I don't really have that right now. In order to get that, we need to we need to select all these little edges here. You can see that when I select it, it's giving me this kind of funny edge loop. That's not really what I want. I was like sitting so. Solid. Okay. That's a little more balanced looking. This orange too is like. Alright. Yeah, I'm kind of giving myself, I think, too many faces here, but we're going to try it out. So we're going to grab all these little edges. I'm just holding shift. Actually, let's go with solid so we can see it better. Holding shift and just coming through and selecting all of these. Okay. Once we have all those selected, we're going to hit I for inset. And it didn't do it. Okay, that sucks. We could try to extrude. That's going to extrude up, which is not what I want. Yeah, I think I messed this up. Well, we could grab. No. Just kind of wondering if we can grab these guys and slide them along. If you hit G twice, it will slide along the normals. Oh, that does work. Does that distort it really weird? No, it doesn't. That's perfect. Okay, great. Let's do that. Hit G twice. Slide these out so you get that kind of rim look. And then we're going to come and grab these guys. Actually, let's isolate it all the way down here. So that's / just isolates it. Alright, hit double G and slide this out. You can see there is some geometry weirdness right here that we are going to fix, but that gives us that rim that we want. So just double G and slide that edge out. And then what we're going to do is we're going to select our face here. This is one solid face. We're going to delete that face. Oof. Delete that face. That is a weird face. I'm not sure why the geometry made that. And then we'll select those two and make a triangle, and select these and make a triangle. These, oops. Triangle, and there, make a triangle. And then if you want, you can select that triangle, double G. Oh, there two. Nope, okay, that does work. Just slide that around. So it kind of matches what you want it to look like. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just double G slides it along that edge. Okay, that looks pretty good. One thing I like to do is merge doubles. So merge by distance. And you'll see down here it says remove 33 vertices. That just means there was a bunch of extra stuff in here that we didn't need. So it has removed it. Great. Alright, so we look at our material preview. We see that we have an orange. But what we need to do is this rim needs to be like a white color. And then this, the outer skin can be that dark orange, and this should be a paler orange. So we are going to unselect everything, go into face select mode, and then make a small, I should probably like zoom in here. It's kind of hard to see. Let's go back to the side. So you could use your circle just to make it kind of small. We're just selecting these faces. I'm just holding my mouse button down and dragging it along there. And definitely screwing up. That's okay. Because now I hold shift to come back and hit those bigger ones. So this gives me a different, or it gives me that rind selection, so I need to make another material. Let's actually go to our shading. If we look at it, let's see it like this. Come back to material preview for a second. So let's add one here, and we'll call this orange rind. And this could be kind of like a whitish. No, let's go like white. Okay, and then we just hit assign. Ooh, I had a face thing there. Hit assign. Assign. All right, that looks pretty good. Then we just need to come over here. So double A to deselect the other side, and then come through and select these. Actually, let's go to solid real quick while we're doing this. Okay, if you kind of screw that up, so just hold shift and come back and get them all. Shift deselects, just make sure you don't have any extra faces selected you don't want. Select your orange rind material, hit assign, check it in your material preview. There's our orange. Alright, now we need to make a orange flesh. So orange flesh. And we will make this same orange material, but let's lighten it. Let's actually make it a little paler. Alright, so it's not as bright. Select orange flesh, or let's select these faces. And actually, if you want, you can hold shift and just get all of these at once. And hit assign, and tab out, and that looks good. The orange flesh does look a little too pale. Could do a blood orange. Actually, yeah, let's do make a blood orange. So we have a blood orange here. It's a little paler. Now this little like shiny spot right there, let's go to render and see if that shiny spot shows up a little. Not too bad. That's controlled by specular, so you can actually turn that down. If you turn it up high, your material gets shinier. If you turn it down, your material is flatter. You can do sheens as well. Sheen is kind of like that surface level reflection. All that stuff helps kind of make a wet material. But we don't need to mess with that too much, so let's kind of take a look at what that looks like rendered in that view. It's pretty good. Alright, let's come edit this guy. So let's edit this in this view. So we have this, and we're just going to repeat that process for the rinds. We're going to go to edges. No, it's not letting me. I thought maybe it would let me select the edge of it. No, it's not going to. Alright, double G to slide that out, to give us that rind. Come back in here, these. Double G for the rind. Alright. I'm going to turn off that while we're looking at it. Oh yeah, we got that weird face right here that we have to fix. Face mode, select that internal face, delete it. And we're doing this because if we don't, it's going to make it look super bizarre. Let's go into verticing mode. Those vertices out of those faces. Great. Alright. It does look a little funky right there. That's okay. Pull that out just a little bit. Okay. Now let's select all of these two faces. It's kind of get our rind material selected. So actually, let's do our inside one first. We'll call this one, let's come to our material. Oh yeah, so this one doesn't have the others, but we do have them already made. So we just need to create new slots, and then this new slot we come in and say, well, orange flesh, and then hit assign, and so now that inside has that orange flesh. Let's see, like that, and then we gotta come back to layout and select our, just make sure you get that outside edge while you're doing this. Orient yourself a little. Get your outside. If you get those outside faces like I just did, don't worry about it. Just come back after you've got everything selected. Shift, and then we're gonna deselect. Hold Shift while you're also pressing your left mouse button, and that will select and deselect those. So we have the Rhine selected. Come back to shading. These Rhines are selected. Select your Rhine material. Oops. Actually, don't select your Rhine material. That's my bad. You need to make a new material slot, and then in that new material slot, select your Rhine material, and then hit assign. And there we go. So, pretty simple. You can always then too come in and like select orange flesh, and if you want, make that a little redder. You'll see because they're sharing materials, it is updating. So decide you want to flip like that, or if you want more contrast. It's whatever you feel like. You can play around with it. It's pretty easy, pretty simple. We didn't really add any seeds. You could add seeds. If you're going to add seeds, I would make them a separate object and just like insert it into material. Think about how the seeds would look. Like 3 seeds, sort of like in here. That would really kind of, that's a little bit of extra that would drive that home, that it's an orange. That would look really cool. Yeah. The next one is going to be a teacup. I'm going to stop this now and look for that teacup tutorial. Okay? It'll be a separate tutorial.